Are Latino voters shying away from Democrats? The demographic has been highly sought after and will continue to be by both parties as we head into November. And the work is already being done on the ground here in Nevada.
Do you think I could leave this at your door? I work with Make the Road Nevada.
Door after door in the sizzling heat of the Las Vegas summer.
You guys gonna vote early this year or in election day? Probably election day.
Mauricio Garcia knocks on doors for Make the Road Nevada, attempting to persuade prospective voters. The conversations vary from immigration to inflation to health care.
And our Únete al Movimiento cards, right?
Civic Engagement Director Jessica Padron is well aware of the inroads made by the GOP and worries about an exodus of Latino voters to the right. She's concerned Democrats may have taken this key voting bloc for granted and need to wake up.
I do feel that while some of the policies may not be very popular from the Republican Party, they are investing way more and doing outreach offices in these communities. They're doing events in these communities. The Democratic playbook has not changed. They're still doing the same, what I call mariachi politics, which is a taco truck, some mariachis in the same little couple corners, and that doesn't reach when you have, for example, a Nicaraguan community, Cuban community, other groups. I think it's really important that we engage all these voters and not just say, well, they're automatically gonna vote Republican or they're automatically gonna vote Democrat. It's about who talks to you, who makes you feel good, who educates you, and who's there for you. Not just during the election period, but after.
Nevada could become ground zero where the true impact of a movement is revealed, possibly signaling which party will go on to control Congress after the midterm elections. In 2020, Latinos made up more than 400,000 eligible voters in the Silver State, a number that's projected to make up about 1 out of 5 votes cast here. Both parties would like the numbers on their side. Political insider and Nevada Independent editor Elizabeth Thompson says it would be unwise for Democrats to focus on a singular issue like immigration, with issues like inflation and rising costs squeezing all Nevada voters.
But the numbers don't lie. One of the reasons that Donald Trump won in Nevada last time around was because he got a larger share of the Hispanic and Latino vote than most people expected him to. I think that was a little bit of a wake-up call for the Democrats.
And the trends are hard to ignore. Joe Biden lost ground with Hispanic voters in 2020, while Donald Trump made 10-point gains nationwide. Republicans are trying to keep that momentum going in 2022. The Libre Initiative is focusing its ground game on the economy. Libre's Eddie Diaz says anxiety over the cost of living can be tied directly to the party that's in power now.
Talking about how this year we're going to pay over $5,000 more in taxes. We're going to pay like $1,200 more just in gas, close to $500 more in groceries. And they're taking notice of that. And they know who's in power, which administration has control currently, and they're getting turned off.
Democrats took another hit in June when Texas Republican Mayra Flores won a special election in a heavily Latino House district that had traditionally voted blue.
We cannot accept the increase of gas, of food, of medication. We cannot accept that.
Flores is getting national attention now, and Pastor Samuel Rodriguez believes her win is just the beginning.
Florida, Texas, Nevada, even California, we saw the flipping of certain districts, very strong progressive districts, flipping red, not even going purple, going from hard blue to red. And there was one common denominator. These districts were primarily over 60% Hispanic populated.
Rodriguez is an influential voice as leader of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference, which represents more than 40,000 churches nationwide. While he welcomes this trend and believes it's rooted in faith values, he says it's premature to anoint the GOP as the party of Latinos.
As more and more whites shift towards the left, more and more Latinos are shifting towards the right. So be careful in wanting to deport the future of the conservative movement. So, that sort of language, tone, rhetoric, it's important for Republicans to be cognizant and aware of that.
Back on the ground in Nevada, Marco Hernandez considers himself part of the shift. A candidate for one of the seats on the Clark County Commission, he ran as a Democrat last election cycle and came up just short. He switched to an independent since then.
I'm actually one of them. I went from being a Democrat to a nonpartisan for the same reason that everybody feels like, both party lines are blaming each other for work that needs to be done and nobody wants to do anything about it. People are fed up and they want to see change. They don't want to see the same old politics.
Now, one of the reasons that both parties are so focused on the demographic, the Latino population has quintupled in the country in the past 50 years. Nevada could be an indication of where at least some of those voters are going. In Las Vegas, Matt Galka, CBN News.